Let's get it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the SchuZ Show. I'm your guys' host, Zach SchuZ Schumaker. It is a late night episode of the SchuZ Show, but without a shadow of a doubt, I do hope you guys had a blessed weekend, a great start to you guys' week on Monday. Now, maybe you might be tuning in on Tuesday, but whenever it is that you guys tuned into this episode, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys are having a blessed day at that point in time. With that being said, though, as I go throughout today's show, if there are any comments, questions, or topics that you guys want me to address on today's show, leave it in the chat, and I'll make sure to address as I go throughout the show today. What's in store for today's show? Well, I'm going to be giving you guys a fight review or recap of everything that went down this past weekend, and then I'll be heading into some boxing news as there's a lot of it. Now, I will admit, not a lot of big fights to get into from this past weekend, but there were a lot of ramifications that will come from what happened this weekend. So I'm going to be breaking that all down for you guys to give you guys an at-large picture of what went down over this past weekend. Let's get right to it, though. Let's start off with the UK fight. Jack Rafferty versus Mark Chamberlain. It ended in a draw. Jack Rafferty and Mark Chamberlain fought to majority draw. One judge scored the fight 115 to 114 in favor of Chamberlain, while the other two scored it 114-114 even. Now, already news has come out that they are both targeting a rematch in this fight. And I think that's what needs to happen. It was, just put it out there, a very entertaining fight, a fun fight, a good fight. I would not have anything. I wouldn't be against them having a rematch whatsoever. I think that she should go forth and do that because we're both guys. Both guys are good fighters, high quality, and neither one really got something out of that fight where it's going to propel them to the next level. Both guys are still in that fringe contender status right now, and getting a significant win against their opponent here would do wonders for their career and trying to get a bigger fight lined up. That's not going to be the case at this moment in time. If they go run this fight back, and let's say Jack Rafferty or Mark Chamberlain separates themselves and they have an excellent performance and they get an obvious win, that would set themselves up for a much bigger fight in the future. So I would love to see a rematch here. I thought it was quite entertaining. I'm all good with the draw. I think it was a right call right there. Yes, you could argue Mark Chamberlain won that fight. Yes, he outlanded the punches on Jack Rafferty, but at the same time, I'm someone that's already said this. I think there is becoming too much of, with the CompuBox era, there's becoming too much of an emphasis right now on putting so much value on who has the most punches landed throughout the duration of a fight in total. When we have to remember, this is a round-by-round basis. If you were to look at the fight at large, of course, you would probably give the edge to Mark Chamberlain there. But when we look at it by a round-by-round basis, Jack Rafferty won his fair share of rounds as well, just like Mark Chamberlain did. And that's why I believe that at the end of the day, this fight was scored properly. It should have been a draw or a slight win by Mark Chamberlain, but a draw is fine with me. I'm excited for this. I think they both should run this fight back, get the rematch lined up. That's what they should do moving forward. Let's go over to what happened on the MVP card. Two big fights happened. The first one was for the WBA interim flyweight title between Yankiel Rivera and Angelino Cordova. This fought to another majority draw decision, 111-115, and then 113-113 across the other two. I'm just going to put it like this. First and foremost, Yankiel Rivera won that fight. I don't know how this was a draw. He should have won it. It should be his win without a shadow of a doubt. He should not have had a draw added onto his win and loss column. He does retain his WBA interim flyweight title, and it should stay that way for the time being. And here's what I'm going to say. This fight better not have a rematch. Absolutely not. For Angelino Cordova, I honestly would like to say this as well. I don't want to see this man fight on a main card on television probably ever again. The way that he fought in this fight was atrocious. You have an opportunity to go out there and fight Yankiel Rivera, who is a standout man, a WBA interim flyweight title, a man with a big fan base, and you decide to go out there and fight the way you did. Absolutely embarrassing. It was not entertaining. It was disgusting. It was not proper boxing. I do not like the way that Angelino Cordova fought in this fight at all. I thought he made it a very embarrassing performance by himself. And for him to even get the draw in this fight was outlandish. He does not deserve a draw. This was a win for Yankiel Rivera, not by a large margin because he didn't have his best night either. But the way that Cordova fought in that fight, abysmal. Not an entertaining fight. I don't ever want to see a rematch of this fight again. I hope it's done with. We don't get to see it again. Cordova has to rebuild himself up. And honestly, I don't want to see him on any big fight ever again. For Yankiel Rivera, shake this fight off. It is what it is. Not a good performance overall from himself either. Now, there's obviously was a lot of good reasons for that, but it was not a good performance either. It's not going to elevate him anywhere else. But still, just scratch this off your list. You got it over with. It's a draw. So be it. Move on to the next one and go on from that point in time. Let's go over to the fight that held massive significance this weekend. Abass Baraou upsets Tellez in Orlando, 116-111, 115-112, 117-110. Abass between DETHRONES Yoenis Tellez of his WBA interim super welterweight world title in a major upset. I talked about this on Friday, and I said this is the fight to watch, not necessarily even because I thought it was going to be the fight of the weekend, and it ended up being that. It was a phenomenal fight, but what an upset by Baraou. Before I go any further, absolutely phenomenal performance. He clearly won this fight. I will admit that the broadcasting group on this fight card, for this fight specifically, I don't know what they were talking about. They made it sound like Tellez was winning this fight from start to finish. They made it sound like this man was in control. I thought Baraou was up the entire fight, the vast majority of it at least. He got the right scorecards. Very happy with how that came out. But still, Tellez was a man that was overhyped. He was a man that got a lot of hype, a lot of attention, and I do think there's a chance he does bounce back. Don't get that twisted. But still, this was a man that was calling a shot for Jon Boots Ennis. I get it. Boots Ennis is coming up from 147. We don't know what he will look like at 154. My personal opinion, he's going to be just fine. However, this was a man that was making those shots boldly at Jon Boots Ennis, where I even had a segment on that last week. And now this man no longer has his interim belt. Well, who does? Baraou. And here's why this fight was so meaningful. When Bud Crawford steps foot in the ring against Canelo Alvarez on September 13th, he will automatically lose recognition as the WBA 154 champion. He'll be removed of that. And when that moment occurs, Baraou, who just won the interim title belt from Tellez, will be elevated to world champion, and the mandatory will then be ordered. And here's what's interesting. According to Gilberto, who is the WBA commissioner, he says that the order will be for Jermell Charlo. All right, so let's set the stage real quickly for everybody listening. When September 13th rolls around, Bud Crawford will no longer become the world champion at 154. He will no longer be recognized by that because it's been, by WBA rules, he's no longer going to be recognized as world champion when he steps foot in that ring against Canelo Alvarez. All right. On September 13th, that means Abass Baraou will officially become a world champion at 154, the best weight class in all boxing. Obviously, that's a massive milestone for himself. What does that mean then? Well, it sets the stage for some big opportunities. He's already been ordered to go fight Jermell Charlo. Jermell Charlo gets a layup fight here. I like Baraou. He's a solid fighter. Could he pull off an upset against Charlo? Sure. Not going to hold that out against him. He could definitely go out there and possibly pull that upset off. However, here's what the stage possibly sets up. When Baraou becomes world champion on September 13th, Charlo officially gets ordered. Those two guys will then fight each other. Baraou, regardless of what happens, will get a massive payday as he deserves. Let's say this possibly happens. Charlo goes out there, becomes world champion at 154. He defeats Baraou. Now you're looking at an interesting situation. Why? Because then at that point in time, Jermell Charlo will have won his fight. On the other side, we already have Boots and Lima lined up to become the interim or first mandatory fight, I should say. Therefore, the winner of Baraou and Charlo, let's say that's Charlo, would then fight the winner of Lima and Boots Ennis. Hypothetically speaking, this could result in us getting a mega fight in early 2026 between Jermell Charlo, Jon Boots Ennis. That would be huge. This would be for a world championship fight, and that appears to be what's going to be happening. Now, obviously, this could be all switched up between who ends up winning these fights. We've seen these planned outcomes end up coming out and not going so well in the past year and a half, 2 years now. However, there is a legitimate chance that in 2026, we have a mega fight between Jermell Charlo and Jon Boots Ennis in 2026 for a world championship. And if you are Jon Boots Ennis, that opens the door for yourself to become a two-division or two-weight class world champion, and you have a big resume win against Charlo. And what could that ultimately set up then down the road later in 2026, especially if Vergil Ortiz does his job and becomes a world champion by defeating, whether that be a Xander Zayas, a Sebastian Fundora. That lines up a summertime or early fall 2026 fight between Vergil Ortiz and Jon Boots Ennis in unification. Now, I know this is many, many, many steps down the road, but I'm just saying, I've always talked about this game plan. Boots Ennis and Vergil Ortiz will always be a big fight. But if you could possibly make this fight happen where both guys are world champions and this becomes a unification, you are talking about debatably the biggest fight in all of American boxing at that point in time. It's debatable. Of course, there's other big options there. But this would be one of, if not the biggest fight, if all those things come to fruition. So a lot of moving pieces here, but that's why I said Abass Baraou in that fight between Baraou and Tellez had massive ramifications on boxing. We saw it end up happening now, and that's the possible outcome for what's going to happen going forward now at 154. So a lot of moving pieces right there. Let's go over now into what also happened at the notable fights this weekend. Jake Weiss secures a unanimous decision victory against Yusuf Dib. He was on the show a little bit ago, and he talked about this. This will be his final fight at the weight class of 140. He's moving down to 135 now. He wants Josh Padley. We'll see if that fight ends up happening. Obviously, his connections there with Eddie Hearn. We'll see if that ends up coming to fruition, though. Sky Nicholson was the co-main event on that card. She scored a second-round stoppage victory over Singh as she continues her journey to become a two-weight world champion. Jack Turner stops Nicholas Augustine Maradza in the 6th round. Turner claims the WBA international title. Lewis Richardson defeats Adrian Spatar by points. He had his second fight in his career at that point, now moves to 2-0. Zach Miller defeats Leon Woodstock by decision. Also, a WBA lightweight title eliminator between Lucas Body. He defeated Roger Gutierrez via unanimous decision on a 116-111, 117-110, 115-112 scorecard. This was also a significant fight. Why, you might ask? Well, because it sets up a possible big fight now between Lucas Body and Kit Austin. And a final eliminator for the WBA, eliminator for the interim belt. That could be what we see right there. I think that would be a very entertaining fight. And listen is what Lucas Body did once again this weekend. He was on the show a couple months ago, and he talked about this. The way Lucas Body fights, for one reason or another, he likes to go on later in the rounds. He builds himself up. By the mid-rounds, he starts to turn the corner, and eventually he gets a big knockdown or knockout, one or the other. We've seen it over and over again. We saw it once again this weekend. He got the win by decision, but he still had a great knockdown there later in the rounds. And I think Kid Austin and Lucas Body would be one heck of a fight to make later this year, possibly even in December. Then super lightweight Jermaine Ortiz defeats Bautista via 3rd round TKO. This was supposed to be a much bigger fight against Steve Claggett. Obviously, Claggett got pulled out on the Monday, so 1 week ago, he had to go have an interim guy step up real quickly. Bautista stepped up. He made the fight happen, but Jermaine Ortiz made quite the statement this weekend. He's still an interesting guy to keep your eye on. Still pretty young overall. I think he does have a bright future. Let's get into some boxing news, though, because there's a lot of stuff on the table at this point in time. Let's hop into boxing news. So, Lamont Roach, there's been a lot of conversation regarding this man over the past week or so. And a lot more news came out over this past weekend. Let's just go down this list right now. First and foremost, there's a lot of options on the table for Lamont Roach. We've seen Richardson Hitchens. We've seen Shakur Stevenson. We've even seen Carmel Moten call out Lamont Roach. And here's the thing. This man is going to get paid in his next fight. Lots of big opportunities are on the table for him right now. We'll see what ends up unfolding here right now. But for Lamont Roach, he has lots of options on the table right now. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what he does. Now, my personal guess is that he's going to be fighting somebody as a tune-up fight before he goes forth with any of the other guys. Who do I think that's going to be? Well, Botch Boxing came out with this right now, and they said that he could be fighting Gabriel Flores Jr. next. Solid fight. We'll see if it ends up coming to fruition. But that could be the situation there. And if finalized, it will be the co-main event to a big PBC card later on this year. So we'll see what ends up unfolding there. But for Lamont Roach, lots of options are currently on the table for himself. If he decides to move forward with a tune-up fight, 2026 will have a massive showdown with a guy like Shakur Stevenson, Richardson Hitchens, one of those type of guys. Carmel Moten, he pointed out that he wants to fight. I don't see that fight happening. It makes absolutely no sense. But hypothetically, it is on the table. We'll see what ends up unfolding there. Let's get into some other things, though. Lamont Roach did clear the air on this regard. He said, contrary to media speculation and social media chatter, Lamont Roach says he did not receive any step-aside money to allow Gervonta Tank Davis to face Jake Paul. Very interesting there. Now, it's not necessarily a step-aside, and I think that's why. He's not obligated to do so because Tank Davis is not fighting a legitimate fight. As of right now, I know there was rumors that the fight is going to possibly still be a professional fight. I doubt that ends up unfolding, but supposedly that's what Nikita came out and said. However, Tank Davis and Jake Paul will be fighting each other in an exhibition fight. If that's the case, technically Jake Paul is not fighting anybody before Lamont Roach. So a step aside would not be mandatory. Also, I do not know what exactly was in the terms of the rematch clause. If that were to say that by a certain date, or Tank Davis couldn't step in a ring, so on and so forth, then there could be issues there. But there was no need for a step aside money. However, Tank Davis came out and says that Lamont Roach Jr. is suing him over their rematch that never materialized. Davis is set to face Jake Paul in a Netflix mega event in November. As I just said, I don't know if this is true. This is just what Tank Davis said. I don't really know where Lamont Roach would attack Tank Davis to possibly get any legality standpoint on a lawsuit there, because it just doesn't make sense. Tank Davis is not fighting a legitimate fighter. This is an exhibition fight, not a legitimate fight. Also, we would have to know what the terms and clauses were on the rematch clause. So I don't see this possibly turning into anything more depth than anything ended up coming to fruition here. I think Lamont Roach, Tank Davis are going in separate ways. I would be surprised if they ever do rematch, But who knows? A lot of stuff is just up in the air with Tank Davis right now. There is no clarity whatsoever. Here's what was interesting, though. Jaron Boots Ennis and Canelo Alvarez were sparring. This past weekend, Canelo Alvarez and Boots Ennis were posting pictures, and they were sparring together. This is game-changing right here. I got two mega points to make right here. First and foremost, Canelo Alvarez bringing in Jaron Boots Ennis to prepare for Bud Crawford is game-changing for him. You're not going to find too many, if anybody, in boxing that is exactly like Bud Crawford. But if there was one guy you could single out and say, you know what? There are a lot of similarities, and it is a good opponent that you could possibly compare to, that would be Jaron Boots Ennis. Canelo and his team brought him in, and I think that's going to do wonders for Canelo Alvarez. You want to spar the best of the best to help prepare you for a mega fight like this. Canelo bringing in Boots is a scary, scary sign. That is a massive move for them to make. Now, obviously, who knows what's going to happen in the ring, but in terms of the preparation standpoint, Canelo having Boots Ennis will do wonders for him in that fight. They couldn't have brought in a better guy than him, and I think him bringing in Boots Ennis is insane. The other point I want to make on this, Jaron Boots Ennis looked big in that picture. This is a man that fought at 147 this year, and I do not know how that's possible. He was significantly taller than Canelo Alvarez in that picture, and then on top of that, you could say I think Canelo probably has him by a little bit of weight right there, but still, Boots Ennis is the guy that looked like a 168 type body. At least 160. And he's just now moving up to 154. This is a weight bully. That's all I'm going to say. This man has mastered the art of weight cutting. The fact that he looked like he did in those pictures right there is shell-shocking. This is a man that just was fighting at 147 earlier this year. If that goes to show just how much he's able to shrink his body weight to be able to make weight, it's insane. So massive props to him. He's mastered that art clause. Whether you are against weight bullies or not, at the end of the day, it's become a skill in combat sports. Jaron Boots Ennis has mastered that, and it's going to still be a problem. He's still going to be a big guy at 154. Mosey Itauma will return to the ring in December. Itauma's team has recently stated that Kubrat Pulev and Jermaine Franklin will be considered for the fight. This makes a lot more sense. Now, I would have liked to see him possibly go after Joseph Parker or a top 10 guy at heavyweight. But him returning in December, which is a little bit of time, I'll be honest with you. But Kubrat Pulev, Jermaine Franklin will both be nice step-up fights for himself. I like the way they're doing it. There's no reason to rush a 20-year-old man. Frank Warren knows how to build heavyweights. He's doing the right job right now. Just keep building Mosey Itauma up. He's going to be ready. Just wait for post-Usyk era. All the belts will open up. Itauma will be in perfect position for that. He'll become world champion, so on and so forth. I like the game plan they have right there. Eddie Hearn has stated that Jai Opetaia can move up in weight to the heavyweight division after his next fight against Chinkara. The decision will be made if no unification fights at cruiserweight are possible. Thank you. This is the decision that has to get made. When you talk about Jai Opetaia, absolutely phenomenal. I've said this last week. I've said this over and over again. This is a man that when you look at anybody at cruiserweight, he has a legitimate chance to be competitive at heavyweight. Who knows how it will go? But if you're Jai Opetaia, stop wasting your time at cruiserweight. There's much more money at heavyweight, legacies at heavyweight, so on and so forth. What else are you going to do other than continue to wait outside of the ring, fight guys that just don't belong to be fighting that ring, like Claudio Spencer, those are the guys you fought recently? There's no point wasting your time. Get one more title defense, give you a little bit more time to possibly look at, okay, can we make this fight happen? Is there a chance for the Baraou Jack fight? If those are not on the table, move up to heavyweight, get over with this cruiserweight era. You've done your job. You did your best. Now go up to heavyweight and see what happens. I hope that's actually legitimate what Eddie Hearn said. I hope that is the game plan so they can move forward making the best decision for Jai Opetaia, because the best decision is not keeping him at cruiserweight right now unless there are big fights with Zerto or Baraou Jack for unification. I'd even extend a little bit. If you can get Chris Bellum Smith, I would take that as well. But if not, just move on to heavyweight. Get this era over with. He's ready. He's at the age he's got to make a decision now. Move up to heavyweight. That's what I would do if I were Jai Opetaia and those managing him. With that being said, though, I do not see any comments in the comment chat section right now. So I'll be wrapping up today's show. I appreciate you guys all for tuning in today's show. I hope you guys have a blessed rest of your guys' day. I will be back live tomorrow night on Tuesday. I do not know exactly what time it will be, but probably around 6, 7, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. But I will see you guys then. May God bless you all, guys all. May God bless you guys all. Have a blessed rest of you guys Monday. And I'll see you guys back live tomorrow. God bless you guys, and SchuZ is out. See you guys tomorrow. God bless.